I have for you today is my octopus tutorial. Let's get started. Before I begin, I want to show you this tray that I just decided to start using, and it makes it so much easier to keep my beads in place, and then I can just simply pick it up and move it to where I need it to go whenever I'm done with it and I need the space. And this is just like a butcher tray, and for me, it's one of my paint palettes that I haven't been using, and it's just been holding stuff on it. So this works really great. And then this is just a dishcloth that you fold over, and it makes it so much easier to grab your beads. So before we begin, I'm just showing this off as another alternative to keep track of your beads and make the process a little easier, especially for when you're done with it. So now that I have the other beads cleared off of here from another project, let me show you your essentials you are going to need to make your octopus. And the biggest thing, the most important, you're going to need beads with a big enough hole to fit 8 pieces of 24 gauge wire through. So I did my measurements with these, and all of these will work. So what I have here is my main bead for the head. This bead will dress the top along with the bead landing. And the bead landing is a bit trickier because it is the smallest of all of them. But I was able to get my wire through. So you're going to have to test it out. And then your wire that you need, like I said, you're going to need 8 pieces, and we'll keep this real simple. 8 pieces that are roughly 8 inches long. And then you can trim them off if you decide you don't want the arms to be that long. And you'll also need some seed beads and some bugle beads, and then beads that are a little bit bigger than the seed beads that come with in the nice assorted packs like this one. Again, as I stated before, I've never measured like my beads for any of my projects. I pick what I like, but just go with the essentials, like can the wire fit through the bead for the project I'm doing. That's the extent of it. And then you'll also need your basic wire tools. And I did not spend the money to buy a looper. It was 40 bucks at my local craft store. And I simply just do not do this enough to make that a valid purchase. So I will take the extra time and the required extra patience to do my own loops. It's no big deal. If you have one, great. First thing you're going to want to do is tap all your wires so that all the ends are flush and even with each other, and then group them together really, really tight. I've considered if it would help wrapping a piece of tape around it or something, and that just might help. Actually, I think I'm going to get a light so that we can see a little better, since the direction of the sun is not very helpful at the moment. Yes, that is so much better. And so what I like to do now that I have them grouped together is thread the trickiest one of all the things I'm using through the wires, and that would be my bead landing. So I might have to turn the camera off for this. We'll just see how it goes. Oh, nope, look at that. I got it. So since that was the hardest one, I'm going to go ahead and get the other bead on here. Sorry that was out of camera view. And get that one on there so it's secure. Still trying to keep the wires a bit flush on this end. I'm going to take one, this is probably about an inch down, and take one and wrap around to help better secure, and group the wires into place. Sorry, I keep going out of the frame. Until I get that end piece completely wrapped, and it's just going to hold these guys just a little bit better. And then come in and just smooth that wire around so that it's not all jaggy at somebody. So can you see that? It's just all wrapped around. I can even slide these down a bit. You have one wire wrapped around, but that's where I want it to be. And it kind of holds the bead landing in place too, but we're going to have a little better security here in just a minute with this. Okay, so now you're going to want to take and fan out, if I can get a hold of it, fan out the other wires, leaving one in the center. Just like that. And then we're going to take one of these beads here, down to the center, try to snug it in there the best you can by moving the other wires out of the way. And then you're going to create a loop here, and this is going to help keep everything in place. And then when you have it, you have this nice little loop made that will better secure and keep your beads from moving up any further. And pay mind to not keep pulling this loop, because you will move this wire up and it won't be like the length you want to. So just kind of hold all your wires tight in place until you get that loop made. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and do some curly loops to almost make it look like the octopus has some kind of hair in some way. And for me, this is all trial and error. I'm an artist. I figure out ways to create, and for the most part, I'm not really paying attention to how other people do things. I know with the spiders, there's several different ways. I've just taught myself how, by whatever was not necessarily the easiest method, but the method that produced the results that I wanted, and that was just by tinkering. Okay, I got my top done, and here's what it looks like. And you know what? If it's a little wonky, who cares? If it's a little Tim Burton-like, go with it. Like, it's all about, you know, just learning and embracing your style of creativity. I'll group them together, and if you look, even my legs did not stay the same length, and that's okay. You don't have to trim them unless it proves impossible to thread your big bead through, but it looks like it's going okay. You could even take, again, a piece of tape and wrap it around right before. They're all different lengths to assist you with sliding your bead on, and look at that! How cool is that? Okay, and then I really wanted this bead right here to give it just kind of the general octopus shape of the body, and it's a little tricky, but like I said, if you need to, maybe tape the wires or whatever you need to do, and then bam, you got it. Okay, from here you're gonna be working upside down until you're finished, and I like to make use of my wire spool and just take it and set the beads right down in it, and it's gonna hold it up just like that so that I can work, because once you get all your loops in at the end of your arms, it's gonna hold everything into place. But until then, this will help a bit with holding your bead into place. It may flail around a little bit, but it's not going to completely fall over, so you'll be okay. And then I like to use a little bit bigger beads. Can you see these? They're bigger than a seed bead. You want something that is almost as big as that hole right there. You're going to put a bunch of these beads. Let me angle it down one more time. You're going to put a bunch of these size beads down at the base. That way they don't fall into that hole. If you use seed beads right up next to that, they're just going to fall down in. So make sure on all of the legs, you start putting down these bigger beads. And you only have to do, heck, even 2 would hold that. And then you can switch to the seed beads if you want. Although I think there might still be some wiggle room for the seed beads to fall down in. So just fill the base with these size beads here. As you can see, I like making use of everything as a tool if I can. I don't like having to buy extra things if something I already have will work. And my brain is always problem solving in that way. And then, let's see, if you fan these out a bit as you're stacking them in, making sure you get your beads on each wire down to the base. They might shuffle around a bit, but that's okay. At least we know that none of the seed beads are going to fall down in once we start using them. So let me check. The strand still does not have a bigger bead yet. And then you just want to inspect them and make sure you got every strand with one of those beads. And like I said, if they're bouncing up and down, that's cool. We just know that the seed beads are not going to move past that. As you can see, if you fan it out a bit, it makes it so much easier to see if there's any left. And you can continue working this way as long as the legs do not go completely horizontal to where you are losing the beads that you just put on. So make sure they're angled up at least a little bit, and then you can start building your pattern. What I like to do is play around with the first strand that I'm working on to see what I like. And usually with the octopus, I don't change up the other legs to a different design, although you can do whatever you like with yours. But I do like to use the bugle beads because they take up quite a bit of space on the legs to where I'm not having to thread tons and tons of seed beads. But again, it's all about what you want to do. Creative, I know that beautiful designs are worth the hassle. And I have a lot of people, like, in the comments, they've been asking, you know, or stating, like, thank you so much for showing us how to do this, you know, thank you for not being a gatekeeper. And I think it's just because I come from the artist community. We love inspiring and showing people, you know, a technique to create. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only way to create, but we love showing our processes, and I think that's just like the spirit of the artist community, because I guess not all communities are the same, and maybe the crafting community is different, but I feel like it's just kind of in a way my duty to show people how to do something that everybody can do. And maybe that is why there's a bit of animosity of other people in the crafting community not showing off what they do. If everybody can do it, then it takes something from them. I don't know. I'm not sure. Just know there's a lot of people hurting right now, especially financially, and I wanted to show off something that everybody could do for a fairly affordable price to still be able to do gift giving, because I've heard from a ton of people saying that they just can't afford Christmas this year, and now they're able to because of seeing my tutorials, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. I feel like that's a duty we have as people, to show people and help people out as much as possible, to inspire. You know, that's my whole, like, I don't know, my whole purpose. So if you're wanting to be inspired and uplifted and have information shared, I am that community. I'm right here for you, because as an artist, I know everybody has their own little special twist of magic that they bring to everything. No two people are going to produce the same thing, and that is really the artist spirit. And I think I am nearing the end of my design. Let me just look it over. Figuring out the pattern always takes the longest, and then it's smooth sailing from there. So I'm pretty happy with that, and I'm gonna leave some length on the end of the leg just in case, you know, my other leg lengths were wildly distorted through like the process at the other end. That way it'll still end up being the same pattern when I'm all done. So I'm going to give that a little loop right there. Okay, that looks good. Just pinch it off, and then I'm going to clip it so that it does not have any snaggy materials. Take care to not cut into your loop. So that would be awful at this point. Okay, and we're ready to move along to the other legs. I had so many people asking me to make them for them and sell them, and I'm sorry, I simply do not have the time calculating an hourly rate with it and everything. It's just not worth it to take my time away from my business to do it. So me showing you this in my leisure time as a leisure activity, this is what works for me, but I just can't make them and sell them. Don't forget to curl your feet as soon as you get your legs done. And then once you get enough of them done, you can fan them out because it'll create some really great stability until you get finished up with the last ones. Otherwise, it'll be wonky and it might fall over. So just a little tip there. Okay, I just finished up the last leg, and a little tip, even if you leave that extra 1-inch room, I did have a few legs that were still a bit short, so I just removed a couple of the beads off the end to make sure I had enough room for the loops. Like this one had 3 little seed beads as opposed to this one only having 1. It's no biggie. Just flip it over, pop it on out, and then you can set it down and start shaping. Let me just angle this down a little. Just start shaping your legs into really cool curlicue type shapes that would resemble an octopus. And there you have it, the most adorable octopus ever. It turned out so cute. And then with the little loop that you left on top, you can always attach a ribbon or something so that you could use it as an ornament on your tree if you really wanted to, or just hang it as a sun catcher, put it in your car. There's so many things you can do with this.